over there. I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. No, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com, brought to you by Gibson Mayer LLC, your certified public accountants located at 301 Oxford Valley Road in Yardley, PA. You can give them a call at 215-369-3300. Tax season will be here before you know it, so be ready, be prepared, and call Gibson Mayer. And also, brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. They are located in Cherry Hill, Burlington, and Princeton, New Jersey. And you can find them on the web at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Guys, welcome to Lazy Booking, live from the Real Talk Studios. The Ginger Gang here. Maddie Sensudi and Chrome. Ryan Brodo on the ones and twos. Back with us this week. Michael Mataraki.
Boom!
I'm a Mike Mataraki guy.
Hey, thank you very much.
Welcome back, guys. Listen, lots to talk about this week. Clearly, we had a controversial event, to say the least, not just in the actual presentation taking place to begin with, but quite a bit that went down in the middle or throughout this whole presentation over at WWE Crown Jewel, which was at Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And our Scanzano Sports poll question this week: what was the most controversial moment of Crown Jewel? The return of Hulk Hogan, Shane McMahon being crowned greatest in the world or best in the world, and Brock Lesnar crowned the new WWE Universal Champion, and of course, literally the entire show. You know, we haven't dabbled into that too much, so I figure let's leave it open. If the fan wants to bring up some opinions or conversations regarding it, drop them in. This is the time to do it, because after this, I think we're all putting Crown Jewel behind us after this.
Forever.
Just like WWE might put Saudi Arabia behind them forever.
They could try. I think they got 9 years left on a contract, though.
True.
Well, we'll have to see how this whole thing unfolds with the government and all the charges and whatnot. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. Clearly, with Raw and Smackdown and coming out of Crown Jewel, it's also been part of the build towards a Survivor Series, which is crazy. It's only 2 weeks away because there's been so much with Evolution and now with Crown Jewel. And now it's 2 weeks after. Boom, they're right into the build.
Well, it's crazy. You went from Super Showdown straight to Evolution, straight to Crown Jewel, and now Survivor Series is here.
I mean, it's been so much. And you know, for cutting off or cutting out having the split brand pay-per-views, it kind of has that feel of back when, you know, last year when they would have a lot of that.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that. We'll try to cover some stuff, other stuff going on in wrestling, and of course this day in professional wrestling. So guys, Crown Jewel, who watched it? First of all, who watched it live? Did anyone watch it live?
No.
I did not watch it live.
I will wait. I was just going to tell you, I have a really, really good one for you when you get to this week in professional wrestling.
Good.
I have a really good one for you.
I like it. Perfect.
Nice. A tease for the audience.
But did anybody watch it live? No, right?
No.
But did anybody catch it that day? So, I mean, stuff started coming out, spoilers and whatnot right away. I made sure to try to get in front of it and tell everybody in every group that I'm in, don't be that douchebag to spoil it. There should be a mandatory, at least in groups and stuff, a mandatory 24-hour spoiler-free to give people a chance.
Well, I don't know about you, Maddie, but I know I get WWE alerts on my
turned
phone.
Off. Got them turned off.
Well, my whole thing was I wasn't going to watch this no matter what.
Okay.
Not live, not on tape, not on anything. I just felt that strongly about it. Mm-hmm. So I just let the alerts come through, and basically after each match, I knew what happened, and I was like, okay, well, it's Friday. I basically know all the results. I'll just go about my merry way.
So you never watched it?
I never watched it.
Okay.
Well, for me, I actually, my friend texted me and he said, "Hey, did you watch Crown Jewel? Because I did, and and I'm so pissed." I'm like, well, that's usual for him. So I'm like this. You say that about every show. How bad was it? It's like I can't describe it. You have to watch it. So I'm like, oh no. that means we've reached a new level. So next thing you know, I look at it and I see Shane McMahon winning the World Cup. I'm like, oh, yeah, we've reached a new level, all right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot to come out of it. And again, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, or Instagram, please join the conversation. We're looking forward to talking about it tonight. Yeah, I mean, so my decision to watch it, I decided I was going to watch it. I feel like, especially doing this, I felt somebody had to take the responsibility of sitting and watching it and being able to kind of give the feedback of having it. Now, did you watch it, Ryan, or no?
I didn't even watch the entire thing. I watched the highlights of it at 4 in the morning the next day.
Okay. So I didn't watch it live, but I did start watching it on my commute home and that night when I got home. So I watched it pretty quick, and then I went to the bar after. It was like watching an afternoon movie. But a really shitty one, like a real shitty one.
So it wasn't like a 5-hour snooze fest the way the Greatest Royal Rumble was?
Well, no, because there was a lot of very unusual things that came out of it that, good, bad, or indifferent, drew your attention, as opposed to, it was pretty clear that was going to be a glorified house show for the most part.
Weirdly enough, the only title that changed hands was a vacant title, just like the Greatest Royal Rumble ever, with tag team titles, oddly enough.
Yeah. My opinion of it was, watching it, I liked that they had kind of short, concise matches for the tournament. You didn't really think, without breaking down the tournament for some reason in my head, I didn't think, oh, man, there's a lot of matches to get in on this card. But then once it started, I'm like, ooh, there's a lot of matches to get in on this card. But I thought they were okay. I mean, obviously, listen, you didn't get like the classic Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio type of match that you would normally get. But I thought, for how kind of short and concise that everything had to be, I felt like the first round of the tournament was pretty decent. The guys got their spots in, clearly with Mysterio rolling up Randy Orton, getting the win there. Dolph Ziggler getting the clean win over Kurt Angle in the first round. I enjoyed the first round of it. Bobby Lashley losing to Seth. It was all clean wins, and I kind of appreciated that. For me, the card wasn't bad. The only match I skipped, and it's the only spoiler I had seen on Twitter because I accidentally opened the app and it had the picture, which I didn't really care, was the tag team title match. And I didn't watch the whole thing. I think I watched the first 2 minutes of it and fast-forwarded to the end of it just to see the finish. But taking that out, I don't know how good that match was. I heard it wasn't bad. The card took a very drastic downhill turn at the Universal title match. Hogan coming out and opening up. So it looked like a WrestleMania presentation. And what was different also with Greatest Royal Rumble, clearly with all the controversial aspects of having this card to begin with, the whole, we're positioning Saudi Arabia to be this progressive country and yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. They cut all that bullshit out. It was just a card. I mean, really, for the most part, they barely mentioned Saudi Arabia to throughout the card. I'm sure not by accident.
Right. I will say this: the set looked awesome.
Yeah, it did. It looked like a WrestleMania card.
It legitimately, like, they spent a lot of money on production values. For sure.
I'd love to see what the bill is alone just on fireworks. But, I mean, they had this massive, incredible fireworks show for Hulk Hogan at the beginning of it, which was a little bit bizarre. And that in and of itself was very controversial, bringing Hulk back. And we'll dabble into that. But I felt like the card took a very unusually fast turn downhill as soon as that Universal well, not even that. It was the WWE title match, which was, to me, underwhelming, probably the least or worst of the matches that AJ and Joe have had. It was clear it was a thrown-together program. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Gave us some stuff to talk about. There's clearly some stuff that's going to come out of that. Not both in the short term for Survivor Series and in the long term, which I'm sure we'll dabble a little bit into that as well.
What do you make of the speculation that they may have not necessarily put their best effort into putting a highly entertaining show together so that the powers that be over there don't press them to come back so soon.
I hadn't actually heard that. But if that is something, so be it. I mean, if there's a time to try to pull a move like that, it was this. Because you had people isolated who weren't going to watch the program anyway. There's people who are going to forget that who never watched it and will never acknowledge that it actually even happened.
There are those who will say
I've heard a lot of that.
There'll be those who acknowledged it, that it did happen, and they wish they hadn't. It's just going to be an interesting range of people.
The story that I had read was that they had the 10-year contract.
Which they do.
Yeah.
I think it's like $450 million
right, but it was
along those lines.
And supposedly, we've got a bump.
And it was caused by
Oh, look, of course it's
Of
Braun.
course it's Braun.
Of course it's Braun.
We have
And of course it's Nakamura, too.
Nakamura,
It's
yeah.
alluding to something.
but the documentation that I read, and I don't know how accurate it is, but like you said, 10 years, ridiculous amounts of money, but there is no set number of dates. There is just a max of four times per year. And prior to Crown Jewel, it was rumored that the Saudi Arabian, I don't want to call them government because I don't think they're a government. I think they're more like a kingdom. Mm-hmm. But they were pressing for, we want you 4 times a year. We want to do this every 3 months. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not quite so sure.
Yeah, I don't know. This was something that obviously clearly just came out of left field.
Oh, yeah.
And they were so neck high in this at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the negative feelings towards people having it. I'm kind of in a mixed emotions about it. Because, for all intents and purposes, I mean, we are the media as well. So you're looking at, it's somebody who's in our field doing his job and trying to, basically report on based on what I've read is a lot of fact. Yeah. And sticking to his guns, sticking to his morals, and for the government over there to, it's hard. I don't know. I have a hard time.
Do what they did
for the way that went, and trying to kind of like this whole big. We're progressive and this and that, and women are driving cars now. Whoop-de-doo, whatever. But it just shows how truly oppressive they are. They try to create the narrative in the media. You can't speak out against them. I mean, it's very clear that there's a lot of show in what they're presenting to the world and
what they're presenting to the world and what's going on inside their borders are not the same thing.
Ever since the Crown Prince took over, he's been doing some reforms to kind of build that smoke screen.
Right. And I get it. Like I get it. It's an absolute terrible tragedy. But there's another side of me that WWE didn't back off and try to make an excuse for holding the show. They admitted it's the bottom line, at least through this show, by backing out last minute without being forced, which I think would have been they would have absolutely obliged if there was any kind of pressure from the government, which there was rumors that there was dissatisfaction, but clearly no pressure.
Right. Well, we talked about this the last time I was on with you guys, was that they didn't even put out a press release saying that they were either, going to do the show or were, considering a possible postponement or something like that. It was in their shareholders report. So, they clearly acknowledged this was all about the bottom line.
No, and they said, listen, it's a $20 million loss to the company. In the back end, at the end of the year, it's an end-of-year $20 million loss to the shareholders.
And if it's a $20 million loss at the end of the year, imagine what it is just for the fourth quarter.
Right. So I'm looking at it, and again, if you're a shareholder, you have your own financial interests, but there's the other side to look at it. And we don't talk about a lot of like government stuff in here, but I think it's important too with this to, you know, what are we getting? It's one of those like, what are we getting our money into kind of a deal though? Like, are we okay with our money, you know, basically backing or contributing to a government or, you know, some kind of a situation? It's basically blood money in a lot of people's eyes now. You know what I mean? I'd be more prepared, but I know we were going to get this deep into it right away. So
it's kind of tough because for WWE, you're damned if you do,
and
you're damned if you don't.
That's essentially what it
you
came
know,
down
and
to.
it's just like, and like Mike said, bottom line, it was business. It wasn't them saying, "Oh, we support Saudi Arabia," because like you said, they cut out everything to hype up Saudi Arabia in any way, shape, or form. And it's not like no one out there is saying anything, you know, for or defending the action. It's just the problem is like the deal was already done, and then this came out of the woodwork, and it's just like the worst possible timing you could have. Just like most things that have happened to WWE in the last month alone, the worst possible timing for injuries, for people having to leave because of medical issues, and because of just something in the political world affecting,
like,
well,
beyond that, beyond your control last minute.
And it's just like, you know, what more can you do to stop WWE from being able to continue their year? You know, it's almost like, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point it's like, you know, we're going to follow Chapter 11 because it just seems like one thing just keeps stacking on top of another at this point in time. It's just like ridiculousness getting out of hand here.
I mean, if I was to give my opinion, and I do share, not share, but I understand the, you know, there's tons of American companies that are continuing to operate out of the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia. And there's not an uproar for those companies to pull out. Now, there are some who maybe have made that decision, and I don't judge WWE by having this show. Now, going forward, future shows, that's going to be where I'm going to have to reevaluate. There's going to be a period of time now in between. A lot more is going to come out about this.
Oh, yeah.
But I've never owned a company that had to worry about a $20 million loss.
Right.
And has shareholders in stock market to where, you know, you're right. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're backed into this little corner right here. What are you going to do? And I guess, you know, they kind of just, to me, it was more of, if the government's not going to shut it down and they're continuing to let businesses operate, we're here. We're going to, at least at this point in time. And I do believe them when they say, you know, future shows and future business dealing in that part of the world. I'm sorry. They will continue to evaluate and monitor that and make a responsible decision. Well, I do believe that.
Because it would have been a little bit more different if it was one of those things where it's like, okay, it's a privately owned company still, and it was family operated, and Titan Sports was still
totally throwing on the McMahons.
Then it'd be a totally different decision. This is just like, okay, this is just Vince's decision, period, whether or not you have this show.
Right.
It's so different now because it's a public company. It's just like, well, now you're kind of like, we have a lot more overlords to answer to than just Vince, you know.
My understanding is that you almost had a 2-on-2 within the family. Because apparently Shane and Stephanie both wanted them to pull out. And Vince and Triple H both said, no, we go. And, you know, and it was kind of like, you know, we have to put it to a vote with the shareholders.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet, though, that John Cena and his self-removal from the event probably had just as much to do with him being a member of the media with the Today Show as it did his political beliefs.
Sure.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because it's a tough call no matter what way you do, because then you're out money and the company can't afford to lose money because WWE's been losing money. So it's just like you can't back out of this deal if you really need it, and they do. Then the problem is, like, well, if you go through with it and you continue to go through with it, then people are going to judge you harshly, especially nowadays. You know, and this isn't like when Vader attacked the reporter and, you know, he got thrown in jail during the Kuwait Cup. That was something completely different than this.
Right.
Well, it's interesting, though, that there's a certain percentage of the fan base out there that feels like no matter what WWE does, that they basically have a license to print money. And most of the time that's true, but when you have something that's this big where you've already accounted for the revenue in your bottom line for the year, you kind of can't move away from that revenue.
Not that late in the game.
Not exactly. That's what I mean.
You know, for all intents and purposes, if they pulled out of that show a week beforehand, you just got to chalk that up as a loss. You know,
yeah, I mean, if they pull out of that 6 months in advance, and they can reforecast their fourth quarter earnings and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, it sucks, but you can work around it.
Or if this was WWE of, say, like, rewind the tape to maybe like 15 years ago when they had a lot more money rolling around there because they were coming off of the Attitude Era in their highest period where they just had money hand over fist. It was like, okay, they can take that loss immediately even if they quickly pull out, and it's not going to hurt them as badly as it would now.
But let me ask you a question, though, Matty. Do we really know that they had more money back then? Because I understand that TV ratings were higher and it was, like the heyday of the industry or whatever. But, I mean, their stock prices now, I mean, just in the last month before the whole thing went down with Saudi Arabia, I mean, the stock prices were higher than they had ever been.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to compensate for, like, the television revenue and stuff like that from the Attitude Era, but I would bet that it's probably pretty close in terms of, like, operating capital.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, we're not talking about a privately owned company anymore. You're talking about that $20 million loss comes down on all your shareholders.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That's huge.
They can't sit there and say, be just the company or the McMahon family and take that kind of a hit. You have a lot of people to answer to. So to me, it's more of they did the show as best as they could. I know that they cut a lot of that fluff and all that BS that was going to be a part of it, just as it was before. Mm-hmm. And they just presented a wrestling show, a overly produced wrestling show, but a wrestling show. And going forward now will be where I will make my judgment. Now, if this continues to go as it's going, or it has been, with all these details more and more that are coming out, and I would imagine that there's going to be some kind of a government sanction that's pulled down at some point, because we did say it's every 3-4 months now they're doing these shows. That's where I'll make my decision then. But I don't want to say I give them a pass, but I give them an understanding this time around.
Well, if a government sanction comes down, we can pretty much guarantee that there will not be another show in Saudi Arabia for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So a couple comments over here on the Facebook. David Rosca says hello. Frank Vespi, hey yo. Sorry to bother you at work, and I apologize, guys, because Zuck hates me, and he cuts off a lot of the long comments. He says, that show should have never happened, plus that show was so bad it makes December to dismember. I'm assuming he's saying look good. Andy Ritter says, hell yes, here we go. The entire show absolutely sucked, arg. Rob Povey says, the entire show with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, our government should have forbidden the WWE to go to Saudi Arabia. I can't read the back half of your comment, so I apologize for that, Rob, but we get your basic gist. And I agree. If anything, the government maybe could have stepped in on that. But it is what it is. Frank says, I bet lazy booking in your house, GFY, which you know that means go F yourself if you've been watched our show previously, will be better than Crown Jewel. Hashtag let's book it. Tito will be in the title match, guys. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed.
He's got his belt right here.
Greg says, Greg Milakovic, I'm actually still watching it now. LOL, New Day match is about to start. Andy says, Greg, save yourself and bail out now. Greg says, I unfortunately can't answer the poll question, though. Enjoy, fellas. Brandon Coffey, he says, Brock is terrible. I don't understand that one. We'll break into that one, buddy. Greg Milakovic, he's laughing at Andy. We're going to skip that dude. Rob Povia, Shane O'Mac, the greatest wrestler in the world. Andy Ritter says, it was one big gigantic cluster. I mean, for the love of God, you build us up. You build up a U.S. Open. I'm sorry, a World Cup, and then you have someone. I can't read the end of that, buddy. I'm sorry.
But that is actually kind of funny. It was really a U.S. Open when you got down to it.
Rob Povia, was Hulk wearing a wig? No, he's not wearing a wig, buddy. But he ain't got much left except for what's kind of horseshoed around the back here. Jason Lasso, money aside, they're trying to push ratings. Vince needs to get over his love for Lesnar.
I don't know. I kind of thought it was interesting when you brought up the topic a few weeks ago of who would you rather have as a champion? Like the Roman, but have the other titles not mean anything, or Brock and have the secondary titles mean more. And now we're back to
what happened. Brock won the title, and now they're getting ready to position probably a Seth and Dean Intercontinental title program. And now the AOP is now the tag team champions. I didn't like the way that they did the tag team title switch, which we'll talk about when we cover Raw and Smackdown. Not a fan of that, although I did think that at least they made Seth look really good. But I wasn't a fan of that. But again, look at those titles back into being prominent on there. What do you got over on the tube?
Do you want the tube, or Maddie, you want to take it, or?
Yeah, because
there's some stuff in here that we probably should address.
John C. Danzo has a question, but I'd like to hold off on it. It's regarding the Bullet Club or the Elite. So I will get to that question, then. John. We will definitely get to that because we know we got the biggest Bullet Club mark over here. So
Roscoe says Crown Jewel was so stupid.
Not good. Wasn't very good.
Watched it a little bit on the road, but he did not like it. SJM86 says, "What's up, fellas?"
What's up, SJM?
And he says, "If I have to watch another Lesnar go over huge pay-per-view, I'm going to lose my mind." Zill Jones responds to that with just a big LOL. Jared
Listen,
Beard says,
before we move on from that, though, who watched UFC 230? Who watched Daniel Cormier's post-fight promo?
I got it when you sent it to me.
And what did he say? Bring your WWE, your newly won WWE title match or title with you, and I'd like to take that too. I'm just saying, guys, putting that title on a whole other scale yet again. I know we hate Brock for that, but it just kind of showed why it's the move. I don't think it's long-term, obviously, like it was last time. This will probably go to Rumble or to WrestleMania. He's only scheduled for, I believe, 2 or 3 pay-per-view appearances with permission to take a UFC fight, which I will dig into. I've read today that is rumored to be potentially March 4th. I believe their event on March 4th or March 2nd. I can't remember. I'd have to look at the calendar.
Interesting.
Which would be interesting because it's 5 weeks before WrestleMania.
So real interesting, though, real quick. So do you think he makes a pay-per-view appearance before the year is out, or do you think they just wait?
Well, he is because he has Survivor Series. He's with AJ. They're doing the SmackDown versus Raw
rematch
matches, which I like. So he's guaranteed to have at least that. And I know we'll dig into it a little bit more once we get into.
Does AJ get his win back, or do we?
We're jumping ahead.
We're jumping ahead like 3 weeks, but yeah.
I think that there's a chance.
Okay. So SJM86 says, sick to my stomach with the creative direction.
Okay.
When will they give Seth Rollins another huge push? They're wasting so many people, in my opinion. WWE needs to approach things in a major sports perspective. Fire the creative writers, hire new ones, or lessen the influence of certain people and allow more writer influence. Interesting.
So you don't like the old sitcom Alf writers from the 1980s and 90s?
I actually thought the writing was pretty good when Freddie Prinze Jr. was there.
It was decent.
It was decent.
It was okay.
Call me old school, but I'd rather have a Booker. Honestly.
Yeah. You do have Michael P.S. Hayes.
The days where they told you who was going over, and the two guys actually figured out the match themselves.
Yeah.
You may have a little input from Pat Patterson here or there.
I mean, at least back then you knew that, okay, at least you're going to get a 5-star quality match, even if the decision's shit.
Well, here's one that I think is directed more towards us or you guys or all of us, as the case may be.
Sure.
Hey, guys, this is WS, which I'm assuming means weak shit.
Why society?
Oh, that was Y Society. I thought it meant weak shit.
That's amazing that your first intuition was weak shit. What's up, Y Society? Welcome back, brother.
Did you change the format, like as in responding in the chat instead of during the show?
No.
Oh, you're just commenting in the chat more. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, we're getting to everybody.
Yeah, listen,
we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do both, and it's tough sometimes. You know, it's not cutting anybody, cutting the legs out from anybody. We try to get to as much as you guys throw out, but we want to make sure that regardless, we're still acknowledging.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're a little active in the chat as well.
SJM continues on though. He says, "It's undoubted that there's a small group controlling the rest. G-rated shit ain't working. Time to flip this thing on its head. I'm just getting this off my chest. It's been there for such a long time. Tell Greg if he wants to save himself, pull the chute now. Otherwise, he's swan diving into straight trash." I love it.
I love it, buddy. That's great.
And then Jared says, "Oh, by the way, this is Y Society, in case you didn't know." Thanks, Jared. You fuck.
That was good.
Now he's laughing at me.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, no. So
I'm conditioned to this shit. WS, weak shit.
The question though is it really? Read his comment one more time in regarding the booking now.
The creative.
The creative. One more time for me.
Fire the creative writers, hire new ones, or lessen the influence of certain people and allow more writer influence.
What did he say about it's weak? What? Read it again. The beginning part.
Sick to my stomach with the creative direction. When will they give Seth Rollins another huge push? They're wasting so many people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he said the booking is like weak shit now. This G-rated stuff.
Oh, hold on.
That's what I'm looking for.
It's undoubted there is a small group controlling the rest. G-rated shit ain't working. Time to flip this thing on its head.
I'm going to disagree with the G-rated shit ain't working because, listen, it is a business. They are making money hand over fist. They are now on the mainstream. They have Ronda Rousey. They have Brock Lesnar. They have Daniel Cormier talking about the WWE title and bringing it to a UFC major fight, which may be one of the biggest, highest grossing fights in the history of the company. And the WWE champion will be a part of that fight.
I'm gonna disagree with you slightly. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I think they are starting to dabble back towards the attitude a little bit, but they're using the women to dip their toe in the water. Primarily Ronda Rousey, Nikki Bella, and Becky Lynch.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that stuff that's come out over the last couple months has been some pretty hardcore stuff, but it's coming from the women, not the men.
What I find interesting, too, is that it almost seems like you sacrifice one for the other if you look through the history of it. Because when WWE first did the Attitude thing, or they started leaning towards it, their ratings just shot through the roof.
Right.
Now, that also contributing factor was the fact that WCW was on Monday as well, and that was a back-and-forth tug-of-war.
Right.
But at the same time, though, they always had pretty solid ratings while they were doing that stuff. And then when they went back to PG, it almost seems like they kind of started to decline. It's weird. It's like they sacrificed, okay, we want to make the big, gigantic dollars with the families and everything like that. We will sacrifice the TV rating for that. Whereas the TV ratings, you know, it was like, okay, that was great that we were attracting a lot of the males from like 20, early teens and, you know, into their 30s and such like that. You know, but we're just going to go past that demographic now, and we're going to start peeling back to the families again. It's like they kind of traded one off for the other. I don't blame them for doing it, though, because it's like more money was available for the family side of things than necessarily for the TV-14 era that they were under. Not that they didn't sell, but it was one of those sacrifices they made.
Ryan, can you look something up real quick?
Sure.
That guy Ryan.
Deck stats!
Deck stats. Deck stats.
Can you try to find the date when WWE actually went public?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I believe it was right before 14, WrestleMania 14, I want to say.
I was going to say, I was thinking it was like
2000?
I thought it was like 98.
It was about 97, 98 to WrestleMania 14. I believe, was 1998. And I believe, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, when they did that whole big public spectacle and Shawn Michaels got hit with the battery, I think it was around that time that they actually officially went public.
Interesting. Okay.
I could be wrong. I believe it's in that vicinity
Yeah, I mean,
of time.
I'm sure it's probably within that
Right.
like a stone's throw, no pun intended, with the battery. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But-
it's just interesting because
And well, I wanted to respond to the other thing that he said.
Go ahead.
'Cause I half agree. There is wasted talent. We're looking at guys like
there's tons of wasted talent.
like Finn Balor and whatnot. Listen, it's a big industry now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really talented guys, and unfortunately, some guys aren't going to get the push that others do. But I make the argument all the time. Do titles mean as much now as they previously did? I say no. When people talk about,
I
you got it.
have
You got the-
October 19th, 1999.
Oh,
so it was
Okay.
a little bit after
A
that.
little bit after that, but yeah, it would make sense. Early fourth quarter of '99.
it
Yeah.
was because Triple H was WWF champion. It was like his first run with the, or
Okay.
second or third run with the belt.
So it was right
That's
around
right.
then.
Interesting.
But I would make the argument that it's a different industry now. The titles don't make the guy. The fans, for the most part, really do decide who goes over, and then the company will push certain guys. Like, look at Seth Rollins. I don't think Seth Rollins needs the Universal title.
No.
Seth Rollins every week is coming out. Merchandise is selling off the friggin' shelves. He's putting on the best matches of the night, getting some of the biggest pops. And he's doing it as a face, by the way, which fell flat on its face for a while, and he had to work his way out.
No pun intended. But it's kind of weird actually, because it seems like even though the fan base is making the star bigger than ever before, it's funny because they hanker so much that the belt goes on the superstar, whereas with what you just said, it's kind of funny how that trade-off happens where the fans who are like super, super into somebody like Finn Balor are like, why has Balor not gotten a chance at the Universal title? Why has he not been put in major title opportunities? Why is he doing pre-show matches with Baron Corbin, the grisly stench of death in the WWE?
But there's an answer to that, though.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is that whether we want to believe it or not, it's because he's over. Because if you ever listen to guys like Bubba Ray Dudley or Mark Henry or even to a certain extent Shawn Michaels or whatever, they say that the difference between the Attitude Era and the current era is that in the current era, one guy goes over, the other guy gets over.
Right.
Is that there should never be a loser in a match. There will be a person who wins the match, but the other guy should always get a rub out of losing the match. So it's the illusion of competitive sports almost no longer exists.
No, and this always traces back to the industry changed when Eric Bischoff created 12 pay-per-views, more programming. You needed more talent to fill that program, quality talent. And over the years, it's morphed to what it is. And let's be honest, like, we hear Finn Balor, we hear Dolph Ziggler, we hear The Miz, we hear Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. There's only two guys, because there's two programs, that can actually be the champion. So unless we're going to trade the belt every month, guys are going to have to get over and be and unless you're a person who doesn't consider a guy over unless he's the world champion, guys are getting over without that. Dolph Ziggler, I am not a huge Ziggler guy. I think he oversells. I think he bought into the hype that he was this great sell guy, and I think he overdoes it a lot of times. Although he's really gotten me into him over the last few months since he's been with Drew. But Dolph Ziggler has lost time and again. He's had great periods of his run, like with The Miz and all those feuds. And he's had times where he's been god-awful. But Ziggler is as over, and for the most part, I would say push, because he's still been in a lot of big, high-profile programs, than just about anybody. In the last, 10 years.
Well, not only that too. It's like it's not only the fact that they're getting over too. It's like there is only 2 world championships, and also there isn't a WCW to take some of that talent away and use them in their company. Without a major competitor, you're gonna have that influx of so much talent, so much TV time, so many championships to give out to people. It becomes almost like a giant breadline. It's very difficult.
You're absolutely right, Matty, but I was convinced back when, when Ziggler's contract was up and there was the whole debate on whether he was going to stay or not or whatever, if he walks, to me, Nick Nemeth is your Impact or Ring of Honor champion within the first 30 days that he arrives because he's that good and he's that over.
Listen, every guy who's not considered over in WWE, considered by terms of the champion, every company they go to, they end up being over. I'm going to have to read it. They end up being over in...
Is this from Rosca?
No.
Oh, God.
Okay.
No, Rosca.
No.
They end up being over in every other company. You look, like you guys mentioned, you think he would be... Alberto Del Rio leaves, and El Patron is the champion. Drew McIntyre was made the champion.
Yeah.
Sandow wasn't the champion, but he was made when they were trying to make that what was it called again? The Grand Championship.
Grand Championship.
When it was kind of first rolled out, they tried to make it a big deal, and he was one of the guys they used to try to be the torchbearer for that. Every guy that leaves who's a mid-card or lower talent here is made a world champion. It's because the WWE, whether you want to admit it or not, is considered and will probably always be considered the top dog in professional wrestling in the United States. And that, I don't care how many of these guys say they don't want to work there, 95% of guys in the professional wrestling industry have a desire to one day make an appearance in WWE because you are considered to have reached the ultimate pinnacle.
Well, I mean, what are the 2 things that...
And I love New Japan.
Yeah.
Well, it's a different product.
Right, but here's the thing. Jericho leaves WWE, and he goes right to the top third of a New Japan card.
Right.
That and he had the history, too, with New Japan,
yeah,
so that definitely helped. But
and here he's making less.
Yeah. But
which I love, by the way.
One thing...
but he's having more fun.
One thing, though, that also is interesting to point out, too, is, like, you can almost make a game out of this, where, say WWE was to no longer be able to employ such superstars, it's almost like you can make a game of go down the list of the roster and be like, okay, is he going to go to Impact and ROH, or is he going to Japan? Because it's almost like, okay, when someone leaves or they get fired, you're like, all right, is he going to either wind up in Impact, ROH, or is he going to show up in Japan?
That would be a fun
because
game to do one night.
That's usually how it works. That's usually what happens when someone leaves.
Although
that would be a fun segment to come up with a list of guys who aren't being properly utilized or who are probably on the fringe, and just go down the list
where
and
they
everybody
wind up.
pick where we would think they would end up in the next 6 months.
It would be interesting to me, though.
And guys who aren't in WWE who could potentially come in and fill those roles.
I agreed. Mm-hmm. I have to wonder, though, if with the success of All In, the NWA 70th anniversary, and the 10 Pounds of Gold series on YouTube, how much money Billy Corgan might be willing to throw at 1 or 2 names to try to really kind of put the pedal to the metal with this whole NWA sort of revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking possibly like JR and what he was planning on doing with, I believe it was Jericho?
No, I mean, Billy Corgan basically has licensed, purchased, whatever, the NWA World Championship, and it's pretty much him and I guess to a certain extent Dave Lagana that basically are controlling the NWA World Championship right now.
Gotcha.
But the NWA is still not necessarily a company per se, but an alliance.
True.
Where, they have the championship wrestling from Hollywood and a couple of the real small territories that they're working with and whatnot. But it would be interesting just to see if Billy Corgan really wants to become a major player in this game.
But I will give him this, though. He brought the title kind of out of obscurity again.
Oh, absolutely.
By simply having Nick Aldis get the championship, have him show up on ROH shows, have phenomenal matches, and then to let Cody Rhodes have the belt for a short period of time. You basically brought that belt once again out of obscurity. That hadn't been seen in the public eye if you're not following wrestling since it was showing up at Wrestle Kingdoms and being dropped to Japanese wrestlers every Wrestle Kingdom. And that was years ago.
Absolutely spot on, Matty. Absolutely.
So I'm going to get to his questions. John's asking some really good questions over here on the Facebook. One of them, I'm going to apologize, buddy. I can't read the whole comment because Zuck hates me. But he says, if the Bullet Club or the Elite come to WWE, will that finally give Gallows and Anderson something to do?
I don't know. It's hard to say, really. I mean, I think it would be interesting if they decided to eventually do the stable of the club, like they actually legitimately decide to go through with it. And they say, okay, we've got the Bucks here. We've got Omega here. We might as well do it. You know, you can even have a feud over who controls the club with Balor or AJ or anything like that.
Or do you forget the name of the club? Do you just do the Elite versus
You could do that.
the Undisputed Era?
You could do that too. You could do a lot of things with that. I think if they do it properly, they can build that stable up to where it'd be like, wow, this is phenomenal. Like literally a matchup that, and it doesn't even involve any championships. Like there are no belts involved in this. It's just pride on the line. Like it's almost like tribal warfare. Like you're either with the Elites or you're with the Undisputed Era. And it would be a crazy rivalry.
The only thing I'll say about it, I don't think AJ will be a part of it at all. I think AJ at
Probably
this point
not.
is above it.
Agreed.
And although it doesn't appear that way, I kind of feel like Finn may not be a part of it either, because I think if you're going to go with those with a stable or a stable versus stable kind of a move, it's got to be Adam Cole and Kenny Omega to me being the leaders, and I don't see either of them at maybe Omega, but any of them being the leader over Balor on a WWE program.
It could be a future rivalry down the line, though, for like, Balor originally being in charge and then he left.
I mean, unless you're going to have like the Elite, the Undisputed Era, and the club.
Well,
and have
God.
a
but
massive-
here's the
A
thing.
three-way war.
If you think
you could do like a War Games with that.
think 11 months down the road, though, once SmackDown moves to Fox and the brand split is dissolved, supposedly,
Right.
if you are bringing in the Elite and you are going to bring up the Undisputed Era, but you don't necessarily want to have them go head-to-head right out of the gate because that means one's got to go over the other. So maybe you do have a, club of, call it a, Gallows, Anderson, Balor, and, maybe they bring in one of the, like Tama Tonga or something like that, just to
I'd love that.
just to put with the club, with the understanding that in the short term, the club's entire job is going to be put over the Undisputed Era and put over the Elite.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do something like that.
What if you did something kind of like, not to compare it to the Nexus because we all know how the Nexus turned out, but something like a Team WWE versus, a Team Elite. That's maybe where you can put, the Undisputed Era and the Elite together. And if you make it a whole like, oh, they're taking over, they're the outsiders taking over, you can easily make them go over because it's just WWE guys. You can have, you can put, I like not Braun Strowman, but you can put like a Dolph Ziggler, you can fill anyone in the blanks. A Jeff Hardy, a Rey Mysterio, a Randy Orton, even throw Cena in there, similar to how they did it years ago.
I like it, but my only concern is when you go back to like the NWO and NWO Wolfpack and all that, and everything kind of got mucky. When everybody was a part of the NWO, now it lost its way a little bit. I would worry that there's so many guys on one side that it just comes off. It's like too much.
But that's the thing, though. The one reason why the NWO got so out of control was that no one really just said, hey, that's it. Whereas now you can easily learn from the past where you're like, okay, remember what made the NWO stale? There was 30 members in literally 2 months. So
fake Sting, fake Sting, fake Sting.
Which is funny because if you watch Table for Three and then kind of go back to that, and it's Kevin Nash, DDP, and Big Show, they even go back and reference the fake Sting and talk about they were so red hot back then that even the fake Sting was over and how crazy over he was.
Was that the one where
they were like, that's when we knew that like we were at the top.
And Kevin Nash was like, and Jeff Farmer could go too.
Yeah.
He could go.
Well, the funny part of it is too is that like not only were they super big, but they got so over that the concept they stole from Japan stole back from them and turned it into their own version of the NWO. It was hilarious.
Don't get me wrong, though. I'm not saying you should put 50 guys against 50 guys.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have an elite, if you have a team elite and undisputed era, what is that? 7 guys, 6 guys at the most.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're looking at, and the timeline isn't right, but you're looking at a Survivor Series team. I mean, that's literally so. It's not like the NWO where there was literally 50 guys and some guys would vanish for 2 weeks or 2 months, for example. Like, I'm not saying that because that's a format that just doesn't work
Norton.
and never did work.
Yeah.
But that's something where if the sole purpose is to bring them in and get them over as a group, not to make this comparison again, but what they tried to do with the Nexus, it could work better because we're in the day and age where, the hardcore fan's going to absolutely know who the elite is, but I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would guess that 85 to 90% of people that watch wrestling consistently may not know them as much as we do, but they wouldn't be like, oh, who the hell are these guys? Mm-hmm. That was kind of the deal back with the Nexus because, sure, they had NXT, but NXT was a joke.
New World Order. I'll tell you what, just because you bring the Nexus up, the most disappointing angle to me over the last 15 to 20 years, when that first happened, I am not. We talk about shocking moments. That's one of the very few times that since I got older and became a bit of a smart because you could read everything on the internet, that I was legitimately shocked. Well, I remember watching like, what is happening right now?
Well, like they beat the shit out of everyone and everything in sight.
What's his name? Justin Roberts.
Who's got choked out with a tie.
Oh, my God. I was like, Jesus.
They tore up the actual ring itself.
That was amazing. Yeah. Like, that was one of the best things they ever did, and wow.
I'll always go back and laugh.
1 month, and it was ruined.
So everyone's heard the CM Punk podcast with Cole Cabana right after he left, right?
Right.
I'll always go back and laugh at the part where he's describing when the Nexus, like the night the Nexus debuted, and that's right after he had laser eye surgery, and everyone, and he was talking about, he was like, my one request was nobody touch my eyes, and literally 2 seconds later, I feel somebody poking me in the eyes. I was like, who the hell is poking me in the eyes? But no, it's funny you bring that up too because, I think it was the show right after Dean turned on Seth. You asked everyone, like, when's the last time you were legitimately shocked during a Raw or SmackDown? That was the last time.
Yeah, it might have been mine, too.
Like, the last time I think...
Strictly storyline.
Yeah, strictly story. Well, even... and the last time you ever really thought of an exciting moment was probably when the Yes Movement took over Raw. And that would have been just excitement. Not even shock value-wise, just out of memorability.
No, that was like a moment, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, when I was last on with you and you were talking about the Table for Three with 3MB, I watched it.
It was good.
It was awesome.
It was really good.
But what reminded me,
it actually makes me like Jinder a little bit more
I know.
too.
But the Nexus moment when Heath Slater was talking about, we went into Vince's office and he said, don't worry about it. I'm getting new everything. Just destroy it. Anything inside the barricade is fair game. And Heath Slater just said, well, all right.
All right. Let me ask you guys a legitimate question. And this is no disrespect to Heath Slater because obviously he's very, very entertaining. Going back to that age of when, they were still introducing everyone, could anyone have guessed that Heath Slater would have been the guy to last the longest?
Of course. He's a ginger.
I'm sorry I asked.
I like it.
Listen,
I like it.
So the
what I'll say
a
is,
ginger who's friends with a guy named Ginger.
yeah, absolutely.
Ginger and the Ginger.
What I'll say to respond to that is he's a very talented guy, and when
Yes.
you, in hindsight, when you look at a lot of those guys, sans Wade Barrett, he has been a guy who has shown that he has a lot of personality to back up a pretty good work ethic in the ring. And there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, you look at a lot of those guys, there's not a whole lot of personality behind a lot of those guys.
No, it was him and
Daniel,
Otunga.
and
Michael
obviously
Tarver.
Daniel Bryan. Yeah, it was
They
Michael Tarver.
tried something with Justin Gabriel.
Gabriel
for a
was
period
great
of
in the
time.
ring, but he wasn't very good.
No, yeah, he wasn't.
There was nothing there. There was nothing entertaining about him.
The only
It works in independence. It doesn't work on in a
You mean you weren't a
WWE
big fan of
environment.
Skip Sheffield?
Sheffield.
Oh God.
Forgot
Feed me more.
Okay, actually, that was one of the few times him being Ryback was better.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
With the atomic belt.
Couple things from John Danzo. And John, if you can, make the jump over to YouTube because we'll address some of the things that you put in here. He said a follow-up to the Elite and Bullet Club. Also out the guys that are involved, Cody, Hangman, Bucks, Schroll, or would WWE put over first? Who would WWE put over first?
Ooh.
I'm assuming he's asking if that is, I guess, the list. I can't read the rest. I'm sorry, buddy.
Well,
And then he has, when and will James Storm go to WWE and reform Beer Money because Rude and Gabriel just don't work in my opinion. I'd like to talk about that too. And he said, I heard rumors that they were going to do a faction with Rey Mysterio, Sin Cara, Andrade, Cien Almas, and Kalisto. Could that still happen? We'll get to all that on the YouTube.
questions.
I like the questions.
That's
I
what we
love
call a tease.
I love when people drop questions in, and hopefully it's a little motivation to join us for the second half on the YouTube. So if you joined us on Facebook, on Periscope, on Instagram, we appreciate it, guys. There is a link on Facebook that you can join us over exclusively on the YouTube for the second half of the show. Yes.
I will say this. The stable they should call that entire faction with Rey Mysterio and the rest, Los Conquistadores.
There you go.
And then it'd be perfect.
So, yeah, make the jump over. We'll continue. We got off of Crown Jewel probably because we don't care about it. But we'll talk some Raw and SmackDown stuff. We'll touch on some of Crown Jewel. And we'll continue to answer your questions, and we'll go through some of our other segments. Maddie, give us a read, buddy.
All right, then. This first portion of Lazy Booking was brought to you by Scanzano Sports Center, located at 5 Carnegie Plaza in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Give them a call, 856-889-3434, or visit them on the web at www.scanzanosports.com.
Also a reminder, if you are on Facebook and you don't get to the second half, Hockey Happy Hour is coming at you at 10 o'clock. If you're a hockey fan, stick with us, guys. We'll see you over on the YouTube.
Bang.
Tom and Mike, AM in the PM, is brought to you by Gibson Mayer, LLC, certified public accountants. Gibson Mayer, located in Yardley, PA, is a leading accounting and business consulting firm with a proven track record of handling critical issues with expertise across many different industries, including construction, distribution, hospitality, manufacturing, real estate, service trades, merchandising, professional services, and professional athletes. Give them a call at 215-369-3300. That's 215-369-3300. Your initial consultation is always free, and if you tell them that Mike from Tom and Mike AM in the PM sent you, you'll receive 15% off all income tax services completed by February 15th. That's Gibson Mayer, LLC, certified public accountants. 215-369-3300. Or visit them on the web at www.gibsonmayer.com. That's www.gibsonmayer.com.
Everybody, I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is the hero Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. Go, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com, brought to you by Sports Outlet for all your sporting needs, located at 703 Black Horse Pike, England, Durham, New Jersey. You can give them a call at 856-939-2030. Email them at sportsoutletnj@comcast.net or visit them on the web at www.sportsoutletinc.com. And also brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy, located in Cherry Hill, Burlington, and Princeton, New Jersey. And you can find them at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
Made it through. Nice. We got the nod from approval from the Godfather right there. His bobblehead's going like that. Welcome back.
And no bumps.
No bumps.
Well, technically there were.
Earlier,
yeah.
I kicked the table like a jackass. Welcome back to Lazy Booking, live from the Real Talk Studios, the Ginger Gang, Chrome, Maddie Sitsuti, Ryan Broder on the ones and twos, and back with us this week, I am a Mike Mataraki guy.
Boom!
Boom. You like that? Boom. Guys, we are talking, if you would like to. We addressed it at the beginning, really haven't gotten back to it because I don't think we really care that much, I'm not going to lie. The Crown Jewel event.
Let me tell you something, baby. Nobody gives a shit about these things.
The Scanzano Sports poll question. I think as we started talking, we're like, maybe we don't care about this event as much.
Like, I'm like cowboy boots, jeans, and a polo shirt. I am the embodiment of fucking Dusty Rhodes tonight.
Let me tell you something, baby.
Let me tell you something, baby.
Nobody gives a shit about that Saudi Arabian card. It was horrible. We're looking on the bigger and better things, baby.
Baby. Oh, man. But our Scanzano Sports poll question, what was the most controversial thing coming out of that? It was Shane McMahon being crowned best or greatest in the world. Brock Lesnar becoming the new, once again, Universal Champion. Hulk Hogan being the host of the event or the event in its entirety. We are exclusively on the YouTube, so if you made the jump, we appreciate it. If you stuck with us, we appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to the fam more. A couple questions we had on the other side before we came back, and I promised him we were going to talk about him, so I hope he's in the chat.
He is.
From John C. Danzo. John, appreciate you dropping him in. He followed up that last question where we had kind of talked about the Bullet Club. He had dropped a couple names out there, and I think the question was more of who do we think would get who would probably, I guess, be put over first, of Cody, Hangman, Bucks, Marty Scurll. I would like to see Scurll. If I'm looking at this, it would clearly be Cody, but I don't know that Cody's going to make the jump right away.
Right.
If I'm looking at the list, I'm going to take Cody out. To me, it's the Bucks. I'm not a Bucks guy. We know it. I'm not going to rehash my feelings on the Bucks. I am blocked by one of them on Twitter. But
I know our friends in this very ring are probably having a conniption right now, but
yeah,
that's their problem, not ours.
Right. But listen, I mean, they are talented guys, and it has become very evident that WWE is very interested in bringing these guys in. I think they would be a huge boost just by notoriety alone to the tag team division. And to me, on the list, if I'm looking at the most likely to go to the main roster and immediately be pushed as opposed to a term in NXT, it's the Bucks.
Interesting, at least as far as I'm concerned, my opinion is the Bucks are, without a shadow of a doubt, entertaining as hell in every aspect of the business except their in-ring work.
Okay, I could agree with that. I get that.
They would be a team that gets over on vignettes, on interviews, on their own YouTube stuff, because there's nothing about their in-ring work that really impresses me except for the occasional Meltzer driver.
It's Meltzer driver, super kick, dive,
but everybody
repeat.
does
it's
super
the same
kicks
thing
now.
over and over. Right.
So they're the tag team version of Scott Steiner.
I guess.
Get over on promos and everything outside the ring.
But you know what? When Scott Steiner was young, he could go.
God, Scott
True,
Steiner's
that
been
is
really-
true. When he was,
When
yeah.
it was an older Scott Steiner that dialed
big
it down
pop-up
and
bump.
just
pumped
Now-
up a little too much.
Now, if/when the Bucks arrive in WWE, you guys know who the first feud is going to be with,
The
right?
New Day.
There you go.
That's
Thank
that's
you.
got money all over.
Yeah.
it.
oh yeah,
I mean,
it's got
that's-
tons of money. all
You
over
go
it.
back to years and years of Twitter
yeah.
exchanges.
And
absolutely.
the YouTube show with
Yeah.
up, up, down, down.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you want to print money? That's pretty much exactly what you're just about to do.
That's a
if you do
Mania match
something
right
like
there. That's a Mania match.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it would be the Bucks when you think about it, and that's not just because of the notoriety, but also one other thing too I wanted to bring up too about their in-ring work. One of the things people seem to forget about, there was a lot of other teams that helped elevate them, because when they were in Japan during the height of that beginning of the Bullet Club and when AJ was champ and everything, who were they wrestling? They were wrestling Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish when they were Red Dragon. They were also wrestling the Time Splitters, Alex Shelley and Kushida. And they were having matches with other really talented junior heavyweight tag teams that they would collect from all over the independent scene and either wrestle them in Japan or wrestle them all over or in ROH. So a lot of teams helped elevate them. And the Briscoes, too, by the way, helped elevate them as well. So I think that's one of the things, too, people forget is like they had a lot of great talented tag teams to work with before, well, when they eventually make their jump to WWE. So that's one thing I think to keep note of when they come to
Right,
WWE.
and I don't dispute any of that. The only thing I would counter that with would be just because they were working with great teams. To me, it goes back to my original point: is that they're fantastic entertainers. I don't see anything in their. The only thing that they do in the ring that I really enjoy is the Meltzer driver. Because everybody does super kicks.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like that's why it's almost like they could go hand in hand with a team like that, where they can be the entertainment, the pizzazz of the match, but the guys who are the workers are the opposite team.
and that goes to the point we talked about earlier: is that one team goes over and the other team gets over. Yeah.
My concern with them is that their shtick in the ring will get very tired very quickly in a WWE product.
Agreed.
And I don't think that's a knock on WWE. I don't think it would be WWE booking them badly. It's Meltzer driver, super kick, dive. That's what they do over and over and over. And nobody does those three things maybe better than them. But you talk about the 5 moves of doom and everything else. That's
I was going to say they're not John Cena.
that's what they do though. It's three. It's a move set of 3 with a few punches and a couple other little things thrown in.
that's another thing too, as
Although
well.
Nick Jackson sells the shit out of other people's offense.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
One of
He does.
Grove's just like yeah, whatever. But anyway,
So does Dolph Ziggler
I was actually thinking
True
that,
story.
That's the
And-
funny part.
and Seth Rollins
Yes, Rollins.
and Finn Balor.
Well, also Rollins will take the bump that no one else will take and get himself injured because that's what he likes to do. But one thing though that can be also said too about the Bucks is they can get over on doing those moves all the time because they're working independent shows. They're working on ROH, where it has some, TV access, but mostly online. And then Japan, they do have their shows and everything that comes up on their streams, but it's not weekly. Whereas when you say WWE, you're doing how many house shows, and then you're doing 2 TV shows, and if they come in when the brand split is gone, they are definitely going to be on both shows, and then you're on the pay-per-views. So it's like, okay, so you got triple the exposure just like that. I could see where that would become an immediate problem because, like back in the territories, when someone would leave a territory for a while and they hadn't seen it for a minute, they can come back whenever they wanted to and make how much money for whoever the new main guy was.
Right.
Well, I know we talked as we were in break. My answer to that was Adam Page, because I actually think he's got a look and a style that Vince likes, and he's probably got the least name recognition out of all of them.
A little molding there,
which means he's got the cleanest slate. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And
makes a lot of sense.
This is, of course, barring if Cody decides that he doesn't want to make that jump. And if he does, then you have to go with Cody.
Yeah, and that's why I took him out.
Yeah,
we know that's the easy answer.
Because if he's coming in and they want to make him heels, well, you got to go with Cody because Kenny will be way too over to make him a heel. Mike was saying it before. There's not a single thing in the world they could have done to make him a heel.
All I will say to you, gentlemen, is bored in Japan and looking for more? Come join us with entry number 4. Signed, the man with 3 H's.
John also asked when.
Yes, I am quoting an episode of Being the Elite.
Oh my God. John said, when will James Storm go to WWE and reform Beer Money because Root and Gable just doesn't work, in my opinion? I don't know that we're ever going to see James
I think
Storm
that experiment came and went, to be honest.
I think he had his opportunity, and he decided to take the money and run back to Impact, and it wasn't everything it was cracked up to be. And I think he made a financial decision in a short term instead of looking at the long term. And I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately, because I'm a James Storm fan. Beer Money's one of my probably top 5 or 10 legitimate favorite tag teams of the last.
Sorry about your damn.
Last 15 or 20 years, but
here's the thing, though, with the product that they have now, they could get away with the stuff they were doing in TNA. I don't know if they'd be able to get away with everything in WWE. So it kind of feels like maybe it's best that we leave that alone and they just stick to what they did in Impact, because that was great what they did in Impact.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
He had one more question, too.
Yeah,
right?
and the other question he had was, well, I heard rumors that Rey Mysterio, Sin Cara, Andrade Cien Almas, and Kalisto's also working with a couple other guys now, too, that they may form a faction. Could that still happen?
Are they coming to the ring on lawnmowers?
I mean,
oh, the Mexicals.
Oh,
Jesus,
yes.
I forgot about them.
Super crazy.
Super crazy.
I am super and I am crazy. I am super crazy.
I don't know that we're gonna see that. I think that they're gonna try to do it without having a guy like a Mysterio in there. I don't see Mysterio's too much of a face at this point, and I don't see Almas getting over as a face. I think that him with Vega is a huge push to him. That's when he kind of turned the corner when they put Vega with him. And I think he has a monster. Whenever they decide to flip the switch on him, there's a monster heel sitting there for them.
Did you see Mysterio on SmackDown Tuesday night?
Yes.
Yeah, he ain't passing his next drug test.
You don't think?
Oh, he's fucking jacked.
That is true. He is.
I mean,
definitely bigger
for him.
Yeah, but he's always been that way. In his WWE runs.
Well, that's the thing, though. He still looks a lot bigger than when he left WWE.
I don't know. Well, he seemed to slim down a lot over his last year of his last run. But if you go back to when he came in and when he had those feuds with Eddie and stuff, he was pretty jacked then too.
I was looking at him Tuesday night, and I'm like, God, he's caught.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Like, there's no way he's not on the juice.
There's a needle. There's a needle.
No, but I don't know that I see that happening. What I could see is they figure out a way that he works with Kalisto, because I think they wanted to do it a year and a half ago prior to when Ray was with the company. But I think the long-term view with Kalisto is to make him the next Rey Mysterio Jr.
Yeah, at some point, absolutely.
So I could see that happening, and maybe him working with those guys. And they're faces. You could throw Sin Cara in there if you want to, but I think ultimately it's going to be about those younger guys now.
I would actually like to see Sin Cara back in there just because you know you're going to get a botch. And you're like, yes, it's back, the Sin Cara botch.
Well, that was a different guy, though, who did a lot of those
It
botches.
was, but, man, I miss it. It's just kind of one of those funny things I look forward to every show.
I wanted to go back to your poll question for a minute, though, and just touch real quick on sort of a sidebar on one of your topics. Hogan, what do you guys make of the tweet from earlier this week, along with the responses from the roster, and particularly the people who responded?
I didn't see it.
So he responded and said something to the effect of, and I know I'm going to get the verbiage wrong, but basically he was watching Crown Jewel, and he made a conscious effort to start dieting again because he's well over 300 pounds. He looks jacked, and as a legend, he shouldn't look like he could kick everyone on the Raw roster's ass. And at least half the roster responded or retweeted in some way, but the best response that I saw, at least, was from Tyler Breeze.
Oh, boy.
And he said something like, and he didn't address it directly to him, and he said something like, my thoughts. The entire Raw roster has talent. We're okay. What do you have? ...
Yeah.
Brother.
I love Tyler.
Something like that. Like I said, I know I don't have the exact verbiage, but it was basically him, Hogan tooting his own horn.
I almost feel like Hogan's like starting to fall into that like Trump category of somebody take the phone out of his hands.
Yeah.
Like somebody needs to get him off of Twitter for a while because he's
like whether you like him or don't like him, agree with him or disagree with him, get the phone out of his hands.
Well, maybe
he puts his foot in his own mouth.
Well, maybe he has senility. Maybe he thinks this is 1985, and he's about ready to win the WWF Championship.
When I saw the tweet, my initial reaction, because I saw it right after it happened, my initial thoughts is, all right, he needs to go to bed right now. Like, it's like, you understand?
Bedtime, Grandpa.
Like, I understand it's the first time you've been outside. You understand? Like, you've been hiding. But, like, dude, just go to bed.
Yeah.
Go to bed, please.
I find it hilarious that, okay, so you had a really horrific, controversial thing happen in your personal life that pretty much forced you out of WWE, and the first thing you do when you get back is to cut a promo on the entire
here's the exact tweet. It says, today is a new day. After seeing myself on Crown Jewel, I've decided to get serious and get under 300 pounds. I looked huge, swole, jacked, and my arms are still bigger than most wrestlers' legs. I don't want to look like I can beat up the whole at WWE Raw roster anymore. Only love HH.
Go to bed.
That's my response. Put your phone down, dude. Put your fucking phone down.
Like, dude, yeah, I saw you on Crown Jewel as well for 5 minutes, and then you disappeared again.
Yeah, not even. It was a 3 minute and whatever second segment.
Like, I watched you too, and I thought to myself, okay, why?
So did anyone watch the main event of Crown Jewel? That is one thing I want to talk about.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So it's been interesting to see the feedback on that match. I'm going to give you my perspective of it since I'm apparently the only one that watched it.
I saw it in highlights, but I didn't sit down.
This is what I'm going to say. I thought that Shawn Michaels overall looked really good for his age for a guy that has not stepped in the ring for 8 years. He was still able to do all of his high spots. He was still able to do the nip up. He's lost a step, a little bit slower, which you
He's
expect
lost a
as
step and some hair.
And some hair, yeah. That I couldn't get used to.
That was
weird. Tough watching, yeah. But now it turned into a botch fest, and I feel like part of that is, listen, I mean, at this point in the game, Hunter is the guy who's going to be the ring general, and Hunter got injured. Clearly, we found that out after the fact. tore his pectoral muscle. He just had surgery, I believe. He'll be out 4 to 6 months, right up to WrestleMania time. That's going to put that Batista program in jeopardy. And I think on the whim, unfortunately, you had to rely on a guy who hasn't been in the ring for 8 years to now lead the blind and the blind through the ring. And I thought that for all intents and purposes, it had the nostalgia feel. Like, if you worried about, oh, God, what's Sean going to look like 8 years later? Mm-hmm. He was fine. He could still work. He could still do a couple more matches with an AJ Styles or what have you. He might even be able to call parts of that match, be a part of the general. Before we had said, oh, I think he could work it, but let somebody else lead the general charge, I think he could still do that. Some people kind of knocked him because he fell on his face when he did the moonsault to the outside. But if you watch it, and I did listen to a couple other podcasts and whatnot who all did kind of acknowledge this, Undertaker and Kane did him no favors of trying to catch him on that. So part of them falling, that wouldn't have happened if one of them would have stepped in front and caught the guy. The comical part of the match, though, was right before that when he's on the turnbuckle and Kane climbed the turnbuckle and he's punching Kane and the mask just fell off his face and the hair in the mask, which was
hello, Governor.
It was like, of course.
Good to see you.
But the best part about it was the mask just falls out on the floor. And you see Kane kind of work his way down and get off and then kind of end up on the outside. And they kept the camera angle on Sean. So you're like, all right, they're giving him a chance to get his mask back on. But then after 20 seconds, he does the moonsault. And Kane still doesn't have the fucking mask on. They go back into the ring. 5 seconds later, cut back to the outside after he took the moonsault without the mask, and the mask is on his head while he's laying knocked out on the outside.
It's called suspension of disbelief, brother.
Brother, I could suspend a lot of belief. That was like, what are you doing? And I love
it's like one of those moments when
I love the governor or the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee, but damn.
The Governor Schwarzenegger. But anyway, what it's kind of like when Vader would get his mask taken off and he'd just say fuck it and just do the whole rest of the match without it on.
But the difference with that was he didn't have hair that is attached to the inside of the mask.
That is a good point. He just had some hair on his head.
You literally see him laying on his side bald. They peer away for literally 5 seconds and then go back to him, and he's in the same position but with the mask on his head. When he had a whole 20 to 30 seconds to put the mask back on. And they specifically made it a point to not cut away for Sean for almost 20 seconds. So that he could put the mask back on. I didn't get it. That I have to say was a comical, a WTF moment in the match.
So, go real quick. I want to go back to the Tyler Breeze thing because there's more to this now. But I want to get your take on it.
Okay.
Oh God.
So the response to Hogan where Hogan is not tagged is. I was going to tweet a reply, but honestly, no interest in him. So I'll say this. Our roster is talented as hell, ... Thanks for giving back, ... brother. But then, a day later, there is some interaction with Dolph Ziggler.
It's like a breaking news segment.
And Dolph Ziggler says, I'll just keep kicking the glass ceiling even when I'm not supposed to. While you play video games on the bench, have fun kicking it in the dark, brother. So he's taking the shot at Breeze.
Yeah.
So Breeze says, let me tell you something. Or he says, let me tell you something. Is this a bit for one of your comedy shows, bud? ... The quote-unquote held down role doesn't work for you anymore. Now I think you're the vet who doesn't know when to hang it up.
Oh, I like it. I'd like to see those two in a match. I think that would be a really good
somehow they went from both taking shots at Hogan to taking shots at each other.
Now, the booker in you would say, okay, if only Breeze wasn't in such a goofy gimmick, we could do something with this right now. But unfortunately,
It's pretty good.
I think as soon as Fandango went out with the injury, they should have just immediately
Took him out of it.
taken Breeze back to the original Prince Pretty gimmick and got him a couple of wins just to reestablish him. And then if you want to use him as a jobber from there, so be
Just
it.
to see
but
where it would lead
you
to.
could you could almost do it like a more updated version of it, and you could have you could have the valet if you want to. It's up to you. You know.
Couple things over on the YouTube here. Frank, I'll get to your question in a minute. John Danzo says the main event between Generation Old X and Crumbling Brothers of Destruction. One thing comes to mind: train wreck. And agreed. I'm not saying it wasn't. I think that Hunter being out didn't do it any favors. That was a big problem. And Sean did what he could to help salvage that match. And Andy says it had the nostalgia feel until the bell rang. Sean was decent, but the other shit was just absolutely terrible. I mean, my God. And again, I think it all fell on when Hunter got hurt. Andy Ritter, who will walk out as so he's asking about Royal Rumble. We got months away from that, Rosca. Come on, brother. And the question Frank asks is a random question. Frank Vaspi. I saw this somewhere on the internet. And I think it was an ESPN article that he may have seen a few months ago. Do you see WWE going back to intergender wrestling? I want your takes. So they kind of are, in a sense. I don't know that they'll ever have men and women wrestling against each other, but they are doing a lot more of the mixed tag stuff and kind of highlighting them on the same level. I don't know that you'll ever see intergender matches again. Not on that scale.
I don't know.
The closest thing we saw to that was the Rousey Triple H interaction at Mania. That's like the closest.
The last intergender match I remember them having was Heath Slater and Lita during that build up to Raw WrestleMania Raw 1000.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll ever see that again. I don't know that they need to do that, but I do think that they are taking the approach of putting them on an equal scale, not just with the events and all that, but by having the mixed tag challenge and having those tournaments like the Mae Young Classic. And highlighting the women, and obviously clearly the pay-per-view.
There's really no need to do it, like you said, because it's not like back in the Attitude Era when they were just using swimsuit models and fitness models, and Chyna was wrestling men because none of the women could wrestle her, and because she was so tall, and that's why she was a 3-time Intercontinental Champion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wanted to real quick. Because we're down to our last 10 minutes or so. So I wanted to get in just coming out of it. Really, the main thing that came out for Raw and SmackDown for me this week that is really notable to talk about is Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey.
Absolutely.
The promos were spectacular. Becky really, I feel like this match, this is going to be a show stealer. This might be the match of the year if they really pull this thing off the right way with the proper build. Becky Lynch, there's nothing better than her right now. It's unbelievable.
Not
how
on the
good she
men's
is.
side, not in NXT, nowhere, nothing.
I don't give a shit about Ring of Honor and New Japan. When I'm talking about a single program and a single superstar right now, and she referenced that she is the hottest name right now in pro wrestling, Becky Lynch. I thought Ronda's response was really, really good and really well thought out. I'm loving it, man. And I just had referenced the tweet that we saw, which was great. Ronda tweeted out. Let me pull it back up. My bad.
I just love when Becky refers to herself as the man.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best.
So
She's I'm the man.
So her social media right now is unbelievable. So Ronda tweets, "Hey at Becky Lynch WWE champ. Okay, I took some time and looked around, and I really think I finally found the man approvable Survivor Series poster. You're completely in the foreground. It's an Instagram picture. I'm sure it has something to do with that." And then Becky tweets back, and I love her name on there now is the man as well.
Yeah.
She tweets back, "Hey, at Travis Brown MMA, come get your wife. She's drunk." Oh, it's so good.
It's awesome.
Her social media is on fire right now. If you're not following Becky on Twitter, you need to. But Is it fair to say that at this point, this is the most anticipated match going into Survivor Series, bar none? I feel like this should be the main event of Survivor Series.
Because when you think about it, you got the baddest woman on Raw versus the baddest woman on SmackDown, and they both have almost the exact same finishing move on top of it.
Yeah.
So
Let me ask you guys this. Currently, what will main event Survivor Series? Because in my opinion, not to spoil, I think Brock's going to win the champion versus champion thing.
Okay.
Therefore, it should not be another Brock Lesnar walks away to end a pay-per-view type of a thing. I don't think, I know they're trying to make the whole SmackDown versus Raw traditional Survivor Series match seem big. I don't think that's worthy of a main event unless there's going to be a huge swerve at the end.
Well, I don't necessarily know that it's a huge swerve at the end, but to me, I think that is the main event, and I think you wind up getting 2 survivors, and it's going to be Braun and Drew McIntyre.
Oh, okay.
And they then wind up going face-to-face, nose-to-nose, as the show goes off the air.
Gotcha.
And, and that just serves to set up the next, the next feud or the next program or whatever.
Well, I think what it's going to lead to, I think it's going to be the Rumble with the triple threat. I think that's what it's probably going to be.
I would absolutely agree with that.
John Danzo says, Becky Lynch, most over champ in a long time. If not her, who was more over than her? I would say yes right now.
We talking champion male and female, or?
Well, it's pretty much between her and AJ when you look at it. I mean, you could say Roman, but then people would, of course, argue it.
You could, you can't say Roman. When you're talking about over with the crowd, you could say Charlotte and her heel run might have been up there as well. Seth Rollins' heel run is very, very good.
I think Nakamura in NXT
and Nakamura
was super, super over.
Yeah, that's fair.
He was.
That's fair.
And then
so was Bobby Roode.
True, yeah.
And then the main roster happened.
Yeah. So, Mike.
Yes.
We're doing this date or this week in wrestling history. You said that you had one.
I have a really good one, but I will show it to you only because if you have the same one, I don't want to step on
Well,
yours.
I'm pulling mine up now. I'd rather you dig it and get it. Yeah, go for it.
Roll it?
I like it. Dig it. I like it.
So this was tweeted out just as Raw was starting on Monday night on the East Coast. 30 years ago to the day, I led the original Midnight Express onto hashtag Superstation TBS and debuted in hashtag WCW. 30 years later, still on top as the advocate for the highest profile athlete in the sport at WWE hashtag Universal Champion at Brock Lesnar.
That's good.
And that is by none other than Paul Heyman himself.
Paul Heyman.
And the one great response that I saw on this is, I love Paulie dangerously, but even Dennis Condrey's fantastic work couldn't distract me from how Randy Rose wasn't remotely in the same league as Bobby Eaton.
There's a lot of good stuff that happened on this date, by the way.
Go for it.
43 years ago in St. Paul, Minnesota, Nick Bockwinkel defeats Vern Gagne to win the AWA Heavyweight Champion. This ended a 2,625-day championship reign for Vern Gagne.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, I think Bockwinkel, he kind of became the poster boy for the AWA after that, pretty much.
Wow.
By the way, Maddie,
Yes.
you may want to look up at the screen.
Yeah, I'm looking.
39 years ago today, Tony Gurria and Rick Martel. Tony Gurria, definitely a better tag team partner than Tito Santana, by the way. Defeated the Wild Samoans to win the WWF Tag Team Championships.
How about this, though? You want to talk about a team where guys go in 2 entirely separate directions.
Oh, God, I know.
Rick Martel goes on to be a multi-time AWA world champion, and Tony Gurria turns into a jobber to the stars. Told
It's
you,
crazy.
Manny.
I had to do it once. They
Well,
just tied it.
Well, I set you up for it. I
Teed it up for you.
served it up for you.
Okay.
I don't even. Do you remember this, Mike?
I got the alert long before they scored, too.
22
Interesting.
years ago today,
Fire away.
WWF taped Sunday Night Slam Survivor Series Showdown 94. On it was the Smoking Guns defeated the Heavenly Bodies. The British Bulldog defeated Owen Hart by disqualification. It's bizarre.
Well, I mean, what was it, like a pre-show
I
that
guess.
they showed
I guess.
before Survivor Series?
That's what it looks like.
Huh. Interesting.
That is interesting.
What's up, Rye?
19
Oh,
years
okay.
ago
One.
today, Scott Hall defeated
One,
Bret Hart, Sid Vicious, and Goldberg in a ladder match to win the WCW United States Championship.
Oh, that was during the Russo era.
Yeah.
Real quick, because I know, like, Ryan just kind of started to give us a sign.
Yeah.
If they took Survivor Series back to Thanksgiving night, would you think there would be more or less interest?
I'd be interested. Less because of football.
Probably.
Yeah.
And because, the shoppers have to start the
But
year the night before.
They compete with Sunday Night Football now, so.
So, couple quick ones. This one's important.
Go for
13
it.
years ago today, at a SmackDown taping in Indianapolis, Indiana, Eddie Guerrero defeated Ken Kennedy by disqualification. It was his final match before he passed away.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yep.
Kennedy.
11 years
And do
ago,
you know the finish to that match?
it was the DQ.
Eddie takes the chair,
Oh, yeah. Toss.
slams the chair on the mat,
And then throws it to
throws
Kennedy.
it to Kennedy,
and falls.
and falls down.
the
It was-
classic Eddie
It was
Eddie spot.
It was absolutely perfect.
Yep.
11 years ago today, CNN aired Death Grip Inside Pro Wrestling, which was the Chris Benoit
Chris
stuff.
Benoit stuff, yep.
And yeah, there's some. Oh, all right. Last one here. 4 years ago, New Japan Pro Wrestling presented Power Struggle. Do you remember that, Maddie? Because you are a huge New Japan fan. AJ Styles defeated Yoshitatsu in that.
Yes, that was a big evening for them.
And Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Katsuyori Shibata to retain the IWGP Intercontinental title.
that was during the time AJ was coming in, and that was huge because he was the newest member of the Bullet Club.
And also, it is Kazuchika Okada's 31st birthday today. So happy birthday to Okada. Guys, great show tonight. Appreciate it. Mike Mataraki joined us. Mike's going to be on a hiatus because 2 weeks, he does the every 2 weeks. It's Thanksgiving. We're off on Thanksgiving.
So I'll see you in 3.
We'll see you in a few weeks, Mikey.
Got it.
Maddie, great show.
And as always,
Ryan Brodo killing it again on the ones and twos. Guys, if you joined us on Facebook, Periscope, Instagram, YouTube, we appreciate it. Maddie, read us. Give us our read.
all right then.
Read us.
Sports at. Okay.
He's like, that's so weird.
Gibson Mayer LLC, your certified public accountants, located at 301 Oxford Valley Road in Yardley, PA. You can give them a call 215-369-3300. Tax season's coming up, so be ready, be prepared, and call Gibson Mayer.
Good stuff, guys. And, yeah, stay tuned. Top of the hour, Hockey Happy Hour. Handsome Brian Daly over here. Mikey Klinkoff, the best hair in the business over here with Maddie Sinsuti.
May have some free hockey to talk about.
And Mikey's so damn handsome, too. Yeah, we got a tie score, so it's going to be exciting with
Yeah.
these guys. So stay tuned. We'll talk to you guys next week.